What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Before I get started on the video, just want to let everybody know tomorrow night I will be live with Bad Dog for Talking Giants as we continue to talk about the draft. And I'll probably have my next Gettleman project up tomorrow as well, in which I'll be simulating the New York Giants trading down from pick number 11 to take an edge rusher, and then seeing how the draft plays off from that. So that should be a lot of fun as well. In addition to that, the 3 or 4 days leading up into the draft, I should have some midday streams talking draft with you guys, maybe doing some one-on-one mock drafts with you guys as well. Me with the chat should be a lot more functional that way. So I'm really looking forward to doing all of that as the draft is fast approaching. But in this video, I wanted to talk about the topic that came out yesterday that was reported by Ralph Vacchiano. Now, Vacchiano is a guy that I've often gone to for quotes about the draft and rumors and so on and so forth. To my knowledge, he was the first guy to report on the Daniel Jones being drafted by the New York Giants like a week before it took place. I'm also going to get into something that Dan Snyder said regarding the validity of some of the things that Vacchiano has to say, but giving his opinion as to what it may mean with the New York Giants. As we all know, right now is smoke season. Of course, there was a rumor that came out a couple of days before that the Philadelphia Eagles were potentially looking to trade up to take Jaelan Waddle. Well, maybe the New York Giants are letting out smoke screens, trying to maybe make it so that the Eagles don't trade up. And maybe the Giants do want a wide receiver instead. That's essentially what he had to say, but I'll jump further into it in this video. As far as the edge rusher position goes for the New York Giants, I think we all agree it may even be the number one need on this team. And if it's not one, it's two. I think it's offensive line. I think it's edge. The problem is, for a lot of Giants fans, myself included, is by most expert standards, there is not an edge rusher in this draft class that warrants the pick at number 11. Most of us would prefer to trade down. And I'll jump into who I think the most realistic trade partners could be for the New York Giants if they are, in fact, expressing the want to draft an edge rusher, because that would be an ideal scenario. Of course, you always need a trade partner. For that trade to be even to become a remote possibility, I would think one of the top 5 quarterbacks would have to drop to number 11, and you would need a quarterback-needy team wanting to come up. That would mean the Chicago Bears or possibly the New England Patriots, who Joe Judge has ties to. Of course, other teams could be looking to trade down with them as well. Or the Giants could stay at 11, and if this article is true, and that's where they're leaning, could just take their edge rusher. There's been a lot of names thrown out there. Kwity Paye, Azeez, Ojulari, several others, right? Jaelan, Phillips. I personally think, and I said it in my live stream a couple of days ago, if the Giants are going to go edge, I think it would be Azeez Ojulari, for the simple reason I think he fits our most immediate need on this defense. That's the outside linebacker position. Yes, Kwity Paye lost some weight. I think he's down to about 261, but I still don't see him projecting as an outside linebacker. He's more of a hand-in-the-dirt defensive lineman. Something that I don't really think is a huge need for this team right now. Now, if the Giants are blown away by him, maybe that's the route they elect to take. Ojulari is very versatile. He has experience dropping back in coverage. Kevin Sherr was his head recruiter while he was at Georgia. Sherr, now the linebacker coach for the New York Giants, and they were looking for Floyd, who is the same weight and went to the same school as Ojulari. So I think the connections are there. I think he fits this scheme very well. And if they're going edge, I would label him the favorite as of now. The question would be, would it be at 11, or would they elect to trade down to do it? Or is it a smokescreen? They could easily still take a wide receiver. They could easily still go offensive line. We still have 2 weeks before the draft. There's a lot that still needs to be answered. But let's jump into some of the quotes by Ralph Vacchiano. First thing I wanted to pull up was the headline at the top of the article. NFL sources sense the Giants are leaning towards edge rusher with the number 11 pick in the 2021 NFL draft. And like I said, Vacchiano is usually somewhat reliable. Now, last year he did say Wirfs. That's what I heard from him a lot last year. Tristan Wirfs. We didn't end up taking Tristan Wirfs. That doesn't mean that the Giants weren't interested in Wirfs, and that doesn't mean that maybe the Giants were leaking out smoke screens because they were trying to get Miami not to have to trade up to get Andrew Thomas, because in the end, that was, of course, the guy that they wanted. So like I said, take all these rumors with a grain of salt. Now I want to pull up this coming from his source. It's a tough call, said one NFC scout. Some of these pass rushers are really second-round talents, and because of that, a decent one could slip to the Giants in the second round at pick number 42, talking about the value. Maybe a guy like Joe Tryon, aside, maybe someone like that could drop to them in the second round, and he feels maybe that's better value. So maybe they could take a lineman instead in round 1, or one of those 2 receivers. And I think those are the options as of now. Mel Kiper came out and said that the New York Giants have to think long and hard if Rashawn Slater's there in 11. I think most Giant fans tend to agree with that. Slater would be my guy if he were there. The question is, will he be? A lot of people are starting to think that Carolina could take him. But the flip side of that is there will be some pretty good receivers and linemen available in round 2, which is what a lot of people say. Wyatt Davis could be there at the guard spot. Ben Cleveland, along with several other players, could be there as an interior offensive lineman. You have guys like Kadarius Toney that could potentially be there, Rondale Moore, so on and so forth in the second round at each of those positions. And the talent level at those positions doesn't drop off as fast as it does at the edge. And I think that's a solid argument. A lot of people seem to think that there's not really good edge rusher prospects that are going to be worthy of that second round selection. Some people would rather wait until the third. So maybe the Giants feel like there's better value at the wide receiver and at the guard spot in the second round, and they elect to go edge, even though it may be somewhat of a reach with that number 11 overall pick. And that's kind of what the scout is saying. Next thing he had to say is this. It's no secret that Dave Gettleman has been looking for that one dominant pass rusher since the day he took the job, said a rival NFC executive. He wanted to find a way to get back up for Josh Allen 2 years ago. And Gettleman came out and talked about how he hated having to pass up on Allen, but they couldn't pass up on Daniel Jones. Even after taking his quarterback, the Giants took Daniel Jones 6th, while the Jaguars took Allen 1 pick later. And it had to kill him that they fell one loss short of getting Chase Young 1 year later. I don't think any of these guys are on Allen or Young's level, but there's potential. And on the same front with Leonard Williams, they could look pretty good. So that's what an NFL executive had to say. Then this. But if Gettleman can finally find that pass rusher he's been looking for, I just can't see Dave passing up on a pass rusher. And if one they like is there, and the scout, he knows what they've been doing for the Giants in their history, and he knows he doesn't have one, he really might look at that as being the missing piece. And, of course, the rumors that came out about them exploring options in free agency this year with Floyd at the edge rusher position makes a lot of people feel like that may be where they're going. This from Dan Salomon talking about Ralph Vacchiano. Ralph has been the most plugged in the Giants beat on the draft over the years, but his report came out shortly after the report suggesting the Eagles might trade up for Waddle. If the New York Giants wanted Jalen Waddle, they might purposely leak this type of info. It's silly season. And that's a good point he brings up. So I wanted to make note of that and give him credit for that because that's something I didn't even think about. Maybe the Giants want Waddle. Maybe the Giants want Devontae Smith and they don't want the Eagles jumping them. And maybe they're trying to leak information that may deter the Eagles from trading up. And they may say, well, if the Giants aren't going to go wide receiver, we still may get him at number 12. There's a lot of cat and mouse going on right now as the NFL draft is around the corner. This I wanted to pull up in case the Giants decide to trade down because, of course, in an ideal situation, and there's not always ideal circumstances, but in an ideal situation, I think we could all agree that we prefer the New York Giants to trade down if they're going to draft a guy like Azeez Ojulari, if they're going to draft a guy like Kwity Paye. These are some trades that I thought were comparable to the two spots that we could be trading back with New England and Chicago in prior trades when teams traded up for a quarterback. This is an example of when Arizona traded up from 15 to 10. The Giants, of course, picking at 11. The Patriots picking at 15. So it's pretty comparable, 15 to 11, 15 to 10. This is what Arizona gave up to get a quarterback, trading up for Josh Rosen in 2018. Or 19, rather. Arizona sent the 18. Arizona sent the number 15 pick, a third-round pick, number 79, and a fifth-round selection, number 152, to the Oakland Raiders for the right to take the signal caller. So, in that scenario, jumping from 15 to 10, like I said, pretty comparable. They got a mid-third-round pick and a mid-fifth-round pick. And, of course, in addition, their first-round pick. So it was 15, a mid-third, and a mid-fifth. So the Giants, maybe you're looking at something similar to that if you were to trade from where we're at 11 to 15, you still get the edge rusher that maybe you wanted at 11, and you pick up an additional mid-third and a mid-fifth if history were to repeat itself. The second one, I think, would probably be more comparable to if we traded down from 11 to 20 with the Bears. Now, of course, the spots are not the same. The Bills traded up, I believe, from 12 to 7, but 7 is much higher than 11. It carries more value. 5 spots from 12 to 7 is pretty comparable, I think, from 20 to 11. And this is what the Bills had to give up to move up from 12 to 7 to get Josh Allen in that same draft. The Bills paid a price to get their quarterback as the trade package included Buffalo's 2 second-round picks, 53rd and 56th overall, respectively. So, again, you're talking about mid to late second-round picks, but they got 2 of them in the same draft. Usually, if you get a future second-round pick, that's more comparable to a third-round pick in the current draft. So maybe they'd be able to get, if they drop to the Bears, their second this year, if they even have a second. I haven't looked at their draft board, and a second in the following year, or maybe even possibly a second, a third, and a future second. Who knows? But I think those are the types of deals you're looking at if the Giants elected to trade down. And you could at least argue a guy like Azeez Ojulari, if you want to go edge, may very well be there at 20. Now, you can't criticize the Giants, at least in my opinion, if they do not make these trades, because you don't know if there are trades on the board worth trading down for. But if the opportunity presents itself, and if the New York Giants do, in fact, want to go after that edge rusher, I would be completely on board with the stance of trading down. At 11, is drafting a guy like Azeez Ojulari a bit of a reach? Yeah. Is drafting a guy like Kwity Paye a bit of a reach? Yeah, most people would probably tell you that were the case. Kwity Paye, like I said, I don't necessarily think he's as good of a fit as Ojulari right now, so that's why I tend to lean more towards Ojulari. Maybe you guys feel differently that are watching this video, but regardless, in my opinion, I think it is a reach at 11 if the Giants go that route. That doesn't mean that will deter the Giants from doing so. A lot of people would have argued in 2018 that a running back at 2, no matter how good he was a reach. Dave Gettleman did it. A lot of people in 2019 would have argued that Daniel Jones at 6 and maybe even Dexter Lawrence at 17 were reaches. That didn't deter Dave Gettleman from doing it. He did it. And last year, there were certainly some people that may have said that Andrew Thomas was a reach at number 4. If the Giants like a player and he's an edge rusher, and that's what they feel is their biggest need, and they're in love with him, that's what they're going to do. Trade or no trade. We're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out, but me personally, I'm still thinking this could potentially be a smoke train, but there's definitely a lot of smoke behind the possibility of the Giants going edge. We're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out in just under 2 weeks. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.